Well, I have to say, I will speak about Albuquerque, and I will speak with love because I am from here. But I'll speak with truth too. But it makes me laugh because I was born and raised here. And man, I remember going to Duke City baseball games. It was the best. And I was a little kid when I was doing that. And I love the city growing up here. I feel like we're a bit underappreciated, especially if you're into the outdoors. We have a lot to offer in this state. You don't have to go far from Albuquerque to go and enjoy some really awesome nature that is around us. But I moved to Fort Worth, Texas. It would have been 2018 to go to seminary to go and get my master's. And while I was over there, I was like, wow, you know, you keep hearing people talk trash about Texas when you live in New Mexico, and then you go to Texas and you're like, actually it's not that bad. It's actually pretty cool over here in Texas. And but the whole time being there, I missed Albuquerque. I missed being here, and I wanted to move back here, and I wanted to bring whatever training I got in seminary to bring back here, to bring whatever good I could back to this city. And my wife and I, we had our first son, Carter, and it was kind of funny. I was coming to the end of seminary. I was getting ready to graduate, and they have job posting boards for seminary graduates. And I remember perusing the jobs through there just to see what was available. And I was so offended at one job listing, and I'm sure they meant well, but I was so offended by this. Because, keep in mind, I was working full-time, I was in school full-time, I had a newborn, I was working hard to get my master's. And I finally get to the end, and like I said, I'm scrolling through this job listing, and the job was like, well, we would prefer the pastor that applies be comfortable leading kids ministry, which, fine, I get that, I can do that. We would also like you to have your limo license too. I was like, what? What? A limo license? And I don't know if they meant having a license to drive a bus for taking kids to camp or actually driving a limo. I don't know what they meant. But I was so offended that I was like, you mean to tell me I have spent so much effort and time studying theology, hermeneutics, how to read God's word properly, how to properly apply it, to go and drive limos. I'm like, what the heck? And I was so frustrated about it. And I was like, well, I've got all this head knowledge. I don't have much practical experience, I felt. And it was really funny. I told Sarah, my wife, I was like, I really want a residency to do. I feel like that would be best so I could get some real life ministry experience and go from there. I kid you not, 3 days later, Jared Bridge, the pastor of Anchor Church North, called me up and goes, hey, you just graduated seminary, didn't you? I was like, sure did. He goes, great, I'm putting together a residency. You want to come join? I was like, absolutely, I do. So I registered for that, and he told me, great, so all you got to do is fundraise for your salary. And I was like, huh, what? And it freaked me out at first, but my wife's like, no, we got this, let's do this. And actually, we were able to fundraise my salary, essentially, in I think it was 3 or 4 months. We moved here in July of 2020, and we moved back for 2 reasons. One, obviously, we have a kid now, and both my parents and her parents are here, so why wouldn't we move back? But 2, we really wanted to bring back Jesus to Albuquerque. We wanted to bring what good we could to this city. And I tell you that because as we read through this psalm today, we're going to be seeing a lot of that, praying. He's going to be talking about Jerusalem a lot. But I want us to take those principles and apply it here in Albuquerque. So we're going to be in Psalm 122 today. We're continuing our series on Send Help. Send help with an exclamation mark. And I think it's so fitting that we started this right after my house flooded. Just, God's got good humor. All right, so last week we saw God's personal help for us in Psalm 121, how he is vigilant to watch over us, how he is our protector, how once you're in Jesus' hand, no one can take you out of his hand. Well, this week, the psalmist is zooming out a little, and we're going to be looking at the city of Jerusalem. So, Psalm 122 is a psalm of ascent, which everybody here goes, oh, yeah, I know what that means, clearly, but for those who don't, it's okay. It is a psalm that was sung when the Israelites were on their pilgrimage to Jerusalem. So, once a year, they came to celebrate festivals and feasts, giving thanks to God. Well, you had to walk. If you didn't live in Jerusalem, you had to walk from your city to Jerusalem. Like, obviously, I know everyone, like, it's such a duh thing, but you just think, like, oh, yeah, clearly it's just a road trip. And it's like, well, no, actually, they walked back then. Like, and if you're lucky, you maybe have a camel that you could ride, you know? Like, but chances are you're walking and you're carrying everything you need with you. So this is like, they would travel in big groups of people. And this is a big deal because outside of the city, like, justice and the rule of law is not guaranteed. I mean, like, you kind of think similar, like, you know, if you were to travel in the middle of nowhere on a highway, like, you know, you might run into some sketchy people and, like, you don't know what will happen. But, like, if something happens, the rule of law will still be applied. Like, that person will still be prosecuted by the law, right? But back then, if you're outside the city gates, there's no promises. There's no guarantee of safety. So people would travel in these large groups together because there's safety in numbers. And so they would sing these psalms as worship songs to kind of fill the time, but also like, we're going to go give thanks to God and we're going to worship him along the way. It's also important to note that this psalm was a psalm of King David. So this song would have been sung towards the end of the journey. And I'm just going to read the whole psalm over you. It's only 9 verses. It'll be up on the screen, but I'm just going to read it to you first and then we'll break it down. So Psalm 122, 1 through 9. I rejoiced with those who said to me, let us go to the house of the Lord. Our feet were standing within your gates, Jerusalem. Jerusalem, built as a city should be, solidly united. Where the Lord's tribes, go up to give thanks to the name of the Lord. This is an ordinance for Israel. There thrones for judgment are placed, thrones of the house of David. Pray for the well-being of Jerusalem. May those who love you be secure. May there be peace within your walls, security within your fortresses. Because of my brothers and friends, I will say, may peace be in you. Because of the house of the Lord our God, I will pursue your prosperity. So just by reading this, just like a casual reading, you can already see this is very focused on Jerusalem. And there's like a couple levels here on why that is. To the Israelites, Jerusalem was where God was. It was a big deal to travel to the city of Jerusalem. This is where like the big temple is. This is where the presence of God is here on earth, here in Jerusalem. Again, listen to David and how he speaks of the city. We're just going to read verses 1 through 3 again. It said, I rejoiced with those who said to me, let us go to the house of the Lord. Our feet were standing within your gates, Jerusalem. Jerusalem, built as a city should be, solidly united. Looking at what he wrote here, we see that while the idea was not that, it may not have been his idea, but he's saying like, I'm rejoicing with those who are going. Like, they said to me, let's go. And he's like, all right, let's go. This is going to be awesome. And he's delighted to arrive. They're celebrating their arrival at this city. They're marveling at this city. And it's not just a city in the sense of like Albuquerque. Again, this is Jerusalem, where the temple of God is, like the presence of God. So you could almost see this as like arriving to church. Like if you could blend a city and a church together, that would be really similar to what we're talking about here. So it's a big deal to come to this place. You see, he's delighted to go to Jerusalem to see God. And honestly, I mean, I'm just going to say it. We should have the same attitude coming to our church here. Being delighted, expecting to worship God, expecting to hear from him, expecting to pray to him. But this city was, again, much more than just a place of worship. It was also the capital of Israel. I have a quote here from a commentary that I was studying. And it says, the rabbis referred to Jerusalem as the navel of the universe. And it's amazing that after so many years, this ancient city still plays such a key role in modern life. Sacred to Jews, Christians, and Muslims, Jerusalem is still the destination of pilgrims from around the world, as it was the destination of Israelites in the ancient days. And it really is, honestly, astonishing that this ancient city still plays a key role. Just like the commentary just said, it just boggles my mind that, like, of the whole world, this city still holds such relevance. I mean, by the numbers, if you look at it, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, like the three big Abrahamic religions, like three major religions around the world, find this place to be of such large significance. But again, to the Jews, Zion, or Jerusalem, is the city of God, where God resides in the temple and is to be worshipped. Again, David here, the psalmist, he's praising the safety of this city. It was heavily fortified. This city had big city walls to keep the city from any invaders. Again, like I was saying, remember, back then, if you're outside of the city walls, like, the rule of law is not promised. Protection from those who want to do you harm is not promised. So they're marveling, they're praising, like, oh, this is a solidly built city with proper walls, proper protection. The author continues, Psalm 122, King David continues, Psalm 22, verse 4, where the Lord's tribes go up to give thanks to the name of the Lord. This is an ordinance for Israel. Okay, so as we've established, Jerusalem is a place of worship, right? Verse 1, he even says, let us go to the house of the Lord. Just the whole reason for the pilgrimage to begin with. They go to the house of the Lord to give thanks to him for the blessings of the past year. So they're going up there. They're saying, Lord, thank you that the crops are bountiful. Thank you that we have another child in our family. Like, they're going through all of these blessings, all of the good things that God has given them. Good health, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to fill in the blank with, that's what they're expressing gratitude for. Now, it's really interesting that you see there in the last verse where it's in parentheses, and it says, this is a ordinance for Israel. And you might think it's a bit odd that it is an ordinance or it's a law that people had to come and give thanks to the Lord. But actually, it's a lot more important than I think we realize. And it's more necessary than I think we realize as well. Thankfulness is incredibly important. I've talked about this before, but thankfulness can be almost used as a gauge for your spiritual health. Usually, if things are going bad, usually if things are not going according to plan, the first two things in your faith to go away are prayer and thankfulness. Like, this is just the fastest things to give up. And so, thankfulness, if you want to gauge where you're at spiritually, you can look at how thankful are you in life? How often do you express thanks to the Lord? And I don't want your scope to be too narrow here on what to be thankful for. You could be thankful for a delicious meal, a warm bed, a good friendship. Personally, I would put good air conditioning in that category, okay? Like, things to be thankful for. We live here in the United States in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and while things aren't the best, we certainly have it a lot better than other parts of the world. We have a lot to be thankful for here. But if you notice in your life that you're prone to complaining, you're prone to being unhappy with life, you're prone to noticing faster the things that are wrong than the things that are good and right, well, then that should give you an indicator of kind of where you're at spiritually. And what's interesting is not only is thankfulness kind of a gauge, it's also a lever that you can pull, okay? If you spend specific time each day expressing gratitude, telling God thanks, like intentionally being like, God, I am bitter right now. I'm struggling to see any good in anything. God, thank you for this cup of coffee. Like whatever you need to start at. If you can just like specifically 3 things a day, express thankfulness for it, you would be shocked how quickly it can turn your heart, how quickly it can soften your heart, making you look more intentionally for all the good things that God does have in your life. And you can use it to work your way towards better spiritual health. Now, obviously, your whole faith should not be built on thankfulness, okay? There's other things like reading scripture and praying to God and meditating on his word, things like that. But thankfulness is this lever that you can manipulate to get your heart to be softer towards God. And having said that, it's all the more important to realize, like, God knew what he was doing when he gave the law, saying, once a year, you have to come up and give thanks to the Lord. And obviously, like, they're doing it more often in prayer and things like that, but you have to make it a habit to be able to do this. And I think today, we oftentimes really struggle with this because instead we get caught up and kind of bogged down in, well, do we have the latest iPhone? Do I have the latest truck? Latest technology, or have I binged the newest season of my favorite show? We consume and consume and consume without ever actually acknowledging everything that we do have. Again, spending intentional time with God, thanking him for what you have, I think you would be shocked just how quickly and how greatly it can change your heart. James 1:17, I'm not sure it's going to be on the screen, but if it is, read along with me, but I'll read it to you now. It says, every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. Did you hear that? Every good and perfect gift is from above. That, like anything good in your life, it is a gift from God. It's an easy go-to, but God didn't have to make food taste good, and he did. Like, that's a thing that I love food. I like to tell God thanks for that. But that's just me. But therefore, we should be diligent to thank God for what we have. But King David continues on, Psalm 122, verse 5. There, thrones for judgment are placed, thrones of the house of David. Another aspect here that David is praising is the fact that Jerusalem is a place of justice. Listen to this quote. There was a second house in Jerusalem, the house of David. So the first being the house of the Lord, the second being the house of David. In this house was a throne where the king sat to administer justice. Among other functions, the monarchy was to provide justice for the people of God. God's people rightly expected to receive justice at the hands of the human king. The human king was, however, an administrator of the divine king's justice. So we're seeing here this idea of government being a tool that was given to us by God to administer justice here on earth. Governments are meant to rule correctly, to bring justice, to protect those who need protection, to help the poor, and to dole out justice when it's needed. So this capital, it was a capital for Israel, like government-wise, civic, laws and administering justice, but also spiritually, it was a capital for the nation of Israel. It mattered that justice was happening here. It mattered that it was being ruled over correctly and according to God's law. So we're seeing here that Jerusalem has multiple layers here in meaning to the Jews. Now, we're seeing here like you have to go to Jerusalem, give thanks to God. This is where you meet God. Now, I want to be very clear. That's Old Testament. New Testament, now, as Christians, Jesus has told us we no longer have to travel to Israel to worship God, but now God resides in us, like via the Holy Spirit. We're stamped with the Holy Spirit when we become a Christian. God now resides in us as Christians, and we don't have to go somewhere to worship him. We don't have to be somewhere specific. I mean, it's kind of cheesy, but it's like a satellite phone. It always has signal. Like God always hears you, no matter where you are. Listen to this other quote I have for you. Since the coming of Christ, Christians know that God's holy presence permeates the world, and there are no longer any specifically holy places. We can meet with God anywhere, not just in any particular city. So continuing on with verse 6 here of Psalm 122, pray for the well-being of Jerusalem. May those who love you be secure. So again, we're seeing the importance of Jerusalem, how it matters greatly to the Jews. We see that it's important spiritually, but in government-wise, it's also where you meet the one true living God and to be in his presence, to meet him face to face. The stability of Jerusalem meant the stability of Israel. That's why it matters so much here. That's why it matters so much that Jerusalem needs to be ruled well, that it needs to administer justice according to God's law. They were often encouraged by God and by other Jews to pray for the well-being of their nation, to pray for Jerusalem. They deeply cared and wanted what was good for their country and city. I have another quote for you, and I think it's needed. It says, having arrived at Jerusalem, the houses of God and David, the pilgrims hoped and prayed for peace. This peace certainly includes the absence of hostility and strife experienced among the scoundrels of Meshech and the people of Kedar. But there is much more to it than that. Peace would result from the exercise of justice, which would not only bring the end of social turmoil, but it would also bring about prosperity on all levels. But this peace here, they're not just talking about civic peace or peace within the city and political peace. They're also praying for peace with God, that Jerusalem would be at peace with God. It's really interesting to me here, and this verse I'm about to share with you was kind of a heartbeat behind me coming back to here to Albuquerque. But Jeremiah 29:7, God speaks this to Israel when they're in exile. They've sinned. God exiles them out of the Holy Land, and now they're in a foreign country. And God tells them, pursue the well-being of the city I have deported you to. Pray to the Lord on its behalf, for when it thrives, you will thrive. Again, they had been cut off from their homeland. They were forced into a culture that had attacked them and won and brought them back to their land. Israel had been broken as a people, and God was telling them something important. Pursue the well-being of this city. What does that mean? Well, do what's good for this city. Start a business. Make a home. Contribute to this city. Try and bring good to this city. Get involved. I shared with you at the beginning, this is why I moved back to Albuquerque, was to bring good to this city. I wanted to move back here because I wanted to bring Jesus to this city. And praise God, we were able to come back here and start this church for his glory. I laugh about it, but while I was meeting with people, because again, it was 2020, okay, don't freak out. We don't need masks. But it was 2020, okay, and Zoom was all the rage. So I'm on Zoom meetings with people like 24/7, it felt like. And I'm telling people, I'm going to move back to Albuquerque. I'm going to do this residency to start a church. And I'm going to do it in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I don't need to convince you of the need in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Like, you can just watch the nightly news and see the need in Albuquerque, New Mexico. In fact, it's sad and funny at the same time, especially if you've lived here for a while. But while I'm in Fort Worth, Texas, we were going to a great church called Travis Avenue. Loved our time there, and had a great pastor over us. And I told him, I was like, hey, can you guys pray for us and like send us out, because we're going to be going and doing this residency to start a church in Albuquerque. So they did that, and they were very sweet. They prayed over us, the whole church did, and people lined up to say bye and things like that. And this older couple would come up to us, and they're like, have you been to Albuquerque, New Mexico? And I was like, yes, actually, I was born and raised there. And they're like, so you know what you're getting into? I was like, yes, I know what I'm getting into. Like, I've committed to this. And so, and these people, not everybody knew what Albuquerque was. But again, it's this idea of, I wanted to come back here. I wanted to seek good for this city. I wanted to bring Jesus back here. And God's telling Israel at the time when they were in exile, it's the same thing. Seek the good of this city, because they had very closely tied in their ideas here that you only flourish in the promised land. You only do good in Israel, where God had cut out this land for us. And God's like, no, you seek the good of wherever you are. I had a friend of mine, Jordan. He would always say, bloom where you're planted. Be a blessing where you are. And I really do think that is key. God also tells Israel to pray for this city to God on its behalf. Praying to God for the city that you're in. Praying for its good. What could this look like? It could look like you just praying something as simple as, God, be with Albuquerque as a whole. Bless this city. Have your hand on it. Give your favor to this city. Help me to see where I can contribute, either through money, prayer, volunteering, with time. But it could also be specifically praying for individuals in authority over the city. God, be with Michelle Lujan Gershom. Be with Tim Keller. Be with Martin Heinrich. Be with them and their support staff. Lord, give them wisdom and favor that they would rule over this city and wield their authority well. That this city would do well under your hand and you would be glorified. This same idea is echoed later by Paul in the New Testament. I have another excerpt here from a commentary here. It says, the psalmist not only prays for peace and prosperity, he also prays for the sake of others. These prayers for peace and prosperity are neither individualistic nor self-centered. They are offered for the sake of family and friends and the entire house of God. In keeping with this, Paul has urged us to pray for all people. Ask God to help them, intercede on their behalf, and to give thanks for them. Pray this way for kings and all who are in authority so that we can live peaceful and quiet lives marked by godliness and dignity. Paul's just expanding on this exact same idea here that we found in Jeremiah. Praying for this city, praying for the leaders. Not praying for the downfall of your political rivals. Not praying that the vote would get this one party in. Not praying, yes, you can pray for the result of an election. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. But if that's all you pray for, then golly, I think that kind of reveals a hang up that you have. We should be praying for whoever is in authority, whether it's red, whether it's blue, whether it's independent, I don't know, whether it's Green Party, whoever it is, we should be praying for them because they are in authority. Why would you not want to pray for them? Why would you pray for their downfall? Because their downfall means our downfall because we live in this city, absolutely we should be praying for them. Now, I'm not saying you have to agree on every point with each political person in authority. If two human beings are in a room, they're going to disagree on something, it's impossible for us to agree on everything. But we should be able to pray for them because God tells us to pray for our leaders. But on top of that, what kind of a testimony would that speak to unbelievers in the city that we want what's good for this city, that we're seeking the good of this city, that we're putting time and resources into it? I'll go ahead and finish here. Psalm 122, 7 through 9. May there be peace within your walls, security within your fortresses. Because of my brothers and friends, I will say, may peace be in you. Because of the house of the Lord our God, I will pursue your prosperity. The psalmist makes it clear to seek the good of the city. God makes it clear. They had a lot of pride in Jerusalem which was all at once a place of political justice, the house of God, a place of worship, and a place to meet God face to face and to give him thanks. Praying for peace politically, but also with God, and to seek the prosperity of this city. So how does this apply to us? Well, we don't live in a capital that's so intertwined with the presence of God and political action, I guess you could say. It's a bit separated for us now. But we have a lot that we can apply from this to where we are today. And let's start with the church. Again, with them coming here, coming to Jerusalem, it was very much viewed like, I'm going to church. It's the same attitude that we should have, because they essentially were. They were going to where the presence of God was. So if we're starting here with the church, what's your attitude coming to church? I mean, I haven't seen anybody like walking here like, oh, I gotta go to church again this week. Like, I haven't seen that, right? But honestly, where is your heart when you come here? Are you expecting to hear from God? Are you expecting to worship him? Do you pray for your church when you come here? Do you pray for the people that are sitting next to you, that they would hear something from the Lord, that they'd be built up? I mean, what is your expectation when you come here? I think we should come with the attitude of expecting to hear from God, not expecting all of our problems to be fixed. Like, all right, God, I'm showing up to church, so this week better be super easy, okay? I better be full of rest, no stress in sight. It better be a perfect week. No, that's not how we should come to church. We should come to church saying, Lord, even if my life's a mess, even if my life is going great and is perfect, Lord, I expect to hear from you. Like, I want to hear from you because I love you. You have purchased my life with the blood of your Son. When you come with that kind of attitude, what could God do with this church if we come with that attitude? We also see them essentially praying for the church. What would it look like to pray for this church? Well, I mean, it could look like praying for me and my family, that in the pressure of ministry, we would place our trust and our faith in the Lord, and that he would provide us with strength. You could pray for our deacon, Steve, as he serves here at this church. You could pray for our church to make wise decisions to continue to grow, but with the intention of bringing the gospel to the lost. You could pray that we would use the resources that have been given to us wisely to make the most impact for God, that we would make an impact here in this city. Next, we see the psalmist seeking the good of the city. He's praying for the good of the city. What does this look like? It means getting involved. We have some involvement over here at Del Norte High School. It could grow. It could definitely be more. I was a little bummed with the Easter egg hunt and the weather that rolled in, but God was still good in it. But I wanted to be able to do more stuff in the park. Golly, every night, every Wednesday night when we were going out there to try and tell people about the Easter egg hunt and tell them about Easter, there were so many families out there at the park. One, it was awesome because it was good weather. It was great to be around families like that. But there's so many people that we could be involved over there with, telling them about the gospel, loving on them. I know I'm talking about this idea a lot, but once we can get our church renamed, which, if you haven't heard that, yes, we're changing our name. We're changing it to Abide. I got to order signs and working with a graphic design artist to get a new logo. But once we do that, I really want to go to the the laundromat just up the street here at Montgomery, and just go, hey, laundry's on the church for today, and we just want to love on this community, bring detergent, dryer sheets, and be like, here you go. We're just loving on you guys. We're seeking the good of the city. We want to love on you guys. But it means getting involved in this city. Hang on a second. I'm getting ahead of myself. It means praying for the city, praying for those in authority, because they will have to answer to God for how they used their authority. Why would we not pray for them to be saved, but also that they would use their authority wisely, that this city would thrive? Too many people that I know have left this city because of all the problems here in this city. And, I mean, if we're being honest, there are a lot of problems. But this city needs our talents. It needs our prayers. It needs our church. And our city is facing some serious problems, spiritually and otherwise. But I want to encourage you with something here. And this is just the coolest thing that I have found when looking at history. And there's research papers on this, and if you want them, I can send them to you. But when you look at history, you see a very interesting trend happening. And that is, once the church had been formed, Jesus had given the Great Commission to the church develops, and you see them beginning to launch world missions. You see them going into missionary efforts, going to countries across the seas, and all this stuff to share the gospel, to tell them the good news about Jesus. You see a very, very interesting thing happen here. And that is, missionaries are going to totally foreign people, totally foreign cultures and countries, and they're trying to share the gospel. And they very quickly and very wisely realized, well, hang on a second. To have any kind of traction here, I need to be bringing value to this country, and people will listen to me a lot easier. So what do you start seeing? You start seeing missionaries start bringing medical care to these communities. Being like, oh my gosh, like, you have an infection? Like, I know how to do that. I know how to treat that. Or they started going there and they start bringing we bring education here. We'll teach your boys how to read. We'll educate them. Oh, what's that? You also want us to educate your girls? Awesome, we'll do that too. And they start educating the women there. And you see incrementally, if I could English, maybe I need education too. Incrementally, you start seeing these communities, these countries, all being further developed and living conditions bettering here. And it's so interesting. Research papers have been written on this. It's all linked to missionary efforts. You start seeing people's view of each other, human dignity being tied to being made in the image of God, seeing people as equals and not having caste systems. You see that starting to affect their local government, how they rule, and people starting to adopt charity. We need to care for the poor because they're people. They're made in the image of God. And it's incredible. It's so awesome to see that that's the impact that the church has made. And if the church has made that overseas, who's to say we can't make even more progress, even more, better the city even more through our efforts here, through our efforts of sharing the gospel. Now, I'm not saying Anchor Church East, we're going to sponsor a hospital, but whatever God has before us, whatever it is, it's going to be to better the city. It's going to be to bring the gospel to people here in Albuquerque for His glory. Let us be the ones to stand up and pray for this city, to seek its good. God has us here in Albuquerque at this specific time for a reason. How can we answer God when He asks us what we did with our time, talents, and treasure? Did we glorify God by sharing the gospel, baptizing people, and seeking the good of the city? And as daunting as this all may sound, we serve a God who is far greater.